All right. Hello and welcome everybody to another episode of the Team Next Level Quad Pod. I'm Coach Greg, joined by Marilyn, Rich, and James. What's up, everybody?
Hi.
What's up?
Hello.
Don't put your hand in front of your mouth when you talk. That's even worse.
Are we going to see this video? We're going to release
No, but
this?
we're gonna hear it. So we're coming at you virtually today. We couldn't be together because I have to watch my kids. Sort of.
Who's watching them right now at this moment?
Apple. That's what I call my in-house nanny, Apple. So how's it?
What was that?
What was that?
Could I get that again? Play back.
Ventriloquist? Looked like a ventriloquist there.
That
I
went
don't
down the
know
wrong
what
pipe.
that was.
Yeah, total wrong pipe there.
It was like you were
gosh.
drinking and talking at the same time or something.
Yeah. Let's try that again. How is everybody's
Yeah.
Thanksgiving?
That's good. Pretty mellow.
We haven't talked
Fun.
since
I
Thanksgiving, right?
know.
Phenomenal.
It wasn't
Oh.
ideal, but it
No,
was
you guys
good.
had a little bit of illness running through the house, huh, James?
Oh, yeah.
I was coming off of at least the flu, maybe, and then most likely COVID. Though Vivian definitely had COVID, and then we were hosting too, so we had canceled last minute. But we had this 21-pound turkey for the four of us.
Oh my God.
Wow.
Yeah.
You still working through that turkey?
I mean, we had leftovers for several days, and like anything, now we're sick of it. So
Yeah.
there's still a lot
Yeah.
of turkey left, but I think that's just gonna go in the garbage.
Yep.
Yeah.
What about you guys?
Greg, did your turkey fit in the air fryer?
Yeah, it was a little bit of a tight squeeze, but it did fit. Yeah.
Did it turn into like a tube then?
I mean, it was touching. It goes in like a crate, like a cage kind of thing, and so it was touching on all the sides of it. But it's all good. Came out delicious. So,
Marilyn, did you do the pig?
We didn't do a pig. We had ribs and beans, rice.
nice.
But like baby back ribs?
Yeah. hmm My dad's ribs. He makes good ribs.
I like that.
hmm
I think I'd rather ribs
good.
than turkey.
Yeah, for sure.
And Rich?
We were at my brother's and sister-in-law, and they had a turkey. That was great. Yeah.
All right. So now that we've caught up after such a long break, tonight's episode is basically titled "Why is Swimming So Hard?" And I don't know who came up with this, but I feel like at some point in our life we've all had this realization that swimming is it seems excessively difficult to do properly, do well, do quickly. So we're going to talk about some of the things that you might want to look out for, some of the things you can work on to make that a little bit less difficult. I don't think it's ever going to be easy, especially if you're coming to it later in life, but that's the plan for tonight. So let's hear from you guys, because like I grew up swimming, so I come with a little bit of a different view towards it. But what you guys all started swimming like lap, like
Last year.
real swimming. Like everybody, all of us could swim as a kid, but like really swimming later in life, right?
Yeah. I mean, it wasn't until we got into triathlon itself that I was like, all right, we got to learn how to swim.
Yeah.
So it was definitely not a natural thing at all.
I swam as a kid.
You did like on a team?
Yeah, actually, yeah. And the truth was I kept getting really bad ear infections. And then the doctor's like, well, maybe this is not the sport for him.
Yeah.
So I didn't really swim till I started tri. And yeah. But I always was okay.
How long
in the
did you
water.
swim before that? Like when you were before the ear infections?
Like a few years.
Oh, really?
Oh, wow.
2
Okay.
3 years, yeah.
How old were you?
I was a kid, so like 7, 8, 9, something like that.
Okay.
Oh, wow.
And I mean, that's the age to learn. Like the younger, the easier it is for you to pick up. It's kind of like a language. When you speak to a kid in multiple languages, they just pick it up when they're little so easily. And the same thing happens, I think, with any kind of skill-based sport. The younger you are, the easier it is to do. So when we try and do it, once all our motor patterns are kind of set as adults, it's difficult.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay, so then I guess James and Marilyn, what did you guys find as the most difficult aspect of coming to it later in life? Like, what did it look like when you guys first moved into the pool? What were the things that like really frustrated the hell out of you?
I think breathing was the first thing that was really hard, to control my breath so that I could make it farther than just one length of the pool.
Yeah.
I would get so out of breath. I couldn't. My heart rate was up. It was really hard.
Yeah, I had the
James?
same exact experience. I couldn't make it across the pool without feeling completely winded because I didn't know
Yeah.
like how to, like when I would swim normally like freestyle, I would just kind of have my head up,
Mhm.
like straight up in the water, like looking
Yeah.
forward to breathe.
You
I
could have
didn't
just
really know
told
how to,
people
like,
that you were sighting the whole time.
yeah, that's basically what I was practicing, sighting.
Huh.
And like I think I could make it like halfway to the pool because I felt like I was using so much effort. And I was like, how do you swim any
Yeah.
distance at all? So in the beginning, it was just working on how to actually breathe and stay calm.
Yeah, I think that's a huge part of it. So what were some things that helped you guys get better at that?
Practicing over and over.
Yeah.
I feel like, I don't know. I don't.
Did you just like try and get through, like did you do anything specific to deal with it, or did you just like say I'm just going to figure it out and just keep swimming?
I think in the beginning, pretty much it was just, keep, and I think just keep swimming. And if I needed a break, I would stop and then keep trying. And little by little, I was able to go further and further and further. But it's something I'm still working on.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm definitely not perfected. I have a lot of
Mhm.
flaws, but when I was taking lessons with John, number one, that helped, just having someone competent to help me.
Yeah.
But he did have me do drills where I would just be on the side of the pool and just standing there, and then like just dip your face,
Just
like
trying to
face in
breathe.
the water,
Yeah.
bubbles, blow bubbles, like turn your face to the side type of thing. Just get used to it, or kind of just like drop down underwater like a pencil, blow out bubbles, like float back to the top. It was just, I guess, just getting comfortable exhaling under the water. Because I don't know if I even knew that in the beginning.
Mhm.
Maybe I would like, before I would breathe, I would just like exhale and inhale out of the water versus just constantly exhaling while your face was in the water. So it was just learning really like basic patterns.
Yeah.
And then moving on to like a kickboard and then like face in the water and then lifting my head up out of the water, like just back and forth, getting used to your face in the water.
And part of it was also the nerves. So you have that going on too. It's not just the skills, but you're nervous because you're not used to doing this. And so I think that is hard also.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. I mean, that's
I remember
like
thinking, oh, like I thought I was going to drown, but I was like, I could always stand up in the pool.
Yeah.
But for some reason, like you're just like so out of your element when you're first learning to swim properly.
Yeah. And then Rich, you're coming from like you learned how to swim properly when you were a little kid and you took a long break. When you came back, like did you at least have that muscle memory to like not have to deal with those initial like how to breathe and that kind of stuff?
So the stuff that I remember is that later on I was like, I'm going to be a lifeguard. So I started swimming again. And then I was just getting back in the pool and doing laps and feeling comfortable in the water. And that was fine. And then the other time was when I started to pick up triathlon. I went to the NYU pool and just started doing laps. And then someone who was into tries sent me like an Olympic swim plan, how to prepare for swim, and I started doing those things. And then I was more comfortable doing breaststroke more than freestyle, so I was learning to be more comfortable with freestyle, and then getting like the paddles and the buoy and the fins to add to some work, and then somebody said, to do these drills, and started doing more drills and stuff, and that's just kind of how I got back into just kind of some form of swimming. Not really amazing, but just okay with being in the water, which was a totally like flipped on my head when I went and did the try in open water. And it was like, well, the pool is not open water, but
Yeah.
even though you're comfortable with one, it's a different animal in the open water experience.
Mm-hmm.
So, Rich, you were early on, you were a breaststroker.
It was easy for me to do the breaststroke. I didn't really have to think about it. I wasn't really doing freestyle. And even when I first started to do more freestyle work, I was trying to work on bilateral breathing and really wasn't getting the hang of bilateral breathing and doing like the different speeds and things like that. So eventually just kind of stuck to one side, truthfully, and then just was more comfortable that way, and then was able to do different sets that way. And I was like, okay, well, I'm just a one-sided breather, and if I need to, I can breathe to the other side.
Do you ever find yourself wanting to go back to breaststroking?
As in to do the whole event in a breaststroke?
Just
No,
in general.
I'm way slower.
Just in general? Just a general breaststroking?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Marilyn just left. She's like, I've
No,
had it
I'm
with
here.
this. I can't take it.
Just gave up.
I'm over
Yeah.
this swimming thing.
Yeah.
Oh, it's just beginning.
I know. I swam today for the first time in a while.
How did it go?
I mean, it was good. I felt good. I actually liked it, but my arms were tired.
Yeah.
But it was good. I just doing drills, working on stuff,
Right.
trying to do all the things I've been told I need to do.
Yeah. All right. So let's real quick go through what are some of the things you guys think make swimming so, like, we've talked about some of the struggles that you guys have had with it. And I think everybody who learns to swim has those same struggles. It's just where in their life they are having them. But like, there are some real reasons why swimming is so damn difficult, right? Like, and it's not as easy as running. It's not as easy as riding a bike. What do you guys think are some of those things?
Well, it's so much like technique where it's like this. You can't like brute force
Right.
your way through it. Like we all have like the will and the like motivation and discipline, but it's just like swimming harder wrong accomplishes nothing.
Nothing.
Yeah. And
You could be
and like,
super fit and still.
how long does it take to realize that? I think is, that swimming harder doesn't always mean faster. And I think a lot of people, it's really difficult to understand that.
Mm-hmm.
So it comes down to like technique. It's like learning, like we know it's technique, but then there's so many, it feels like
Yeah.
there's so many things that have to go right to finally have that smooth, efficient stroke for triathlon. It's almost like feels impossible.
Yeah.
It's summing it up in saying that it's like walking and chewing gum at the same time. And it's not only walking and chewing gum, it's like doing 50 other things because everything's technique based. So like if you're trying to focus on swimming and doing all the 50 things at the same time, that's why it's hard, or at least that's how I think about it. You can only work on one thing. So for me still, if I'm focused on just kicking, I'm not thinking about stroke rate or whatever else. I'm just focused on kicking and then using that. And that's the thing with swimming. Like there's 100 things in the technique, but you can only, when you're practicing or doing that one drill, focus on that one thing, like chewing gum and not walking. So that, I think, is the hard part. It's getting your body to do mechanically without thinking fully all those 100 things without having to think about any one of them. And that's, I think, the thing about the techniques in swimming that's hard.
Yeah, I think there's also the issue with very rarely are the cause and effect of a problem all that clear. Like, you see, if you go and watch, a triathlete master swimming group in the pool, I bet like 9 out of 10 people have sinky legs, right? So their legs are dragging low behind them. You can't just say to them, like, lift up your legs, right? That's not, like, that's the problem. That's the effect. But what's the actual cause of it? And that could be 4 different things. Or, if we got 9 people with sinky legs, there could be 9 different things causing that symptom. And so it's really hard to filter through and figure out like, well, where is the flaw that's causing this? Like, so we just started the swim team up for the high school last week, and I have a handful of new kids on the JV squad. I got like 10 of them. None of them have ever swam competitively. They're in all different range of shapes and stuff. But I have this one kid who, if you looked at him, you're like, oh, that's an athlete. Like he's, but he can't let his legs float. Like he literally holding onto the side of the pool and he can't lift them. He doesn't have anything going. Like he just can't do it. And today we were sitting in the pool and I literally had him holding onto the edge of the pool, doing the kind of drills that James was talking about with like breathing and stuff. And I said, you just need to let the air out of your lungs. You can't hold your lungs at like 90 to 100% full. You need to be at 50% full. And when he did that, his whole upper body sank and his legs just came right back up. I was like, dude, you're a seesaw, right? It's a matter of if you float up on one side, the other side's going down no matter how hard you try. And it was just one of those moments where things click. But until you figure that out, it's freaking frustrating as hell.
I think it's
that's
not
the other
natural
thing, right?
No, it's not natural. We're not meant to be in the water.
And something may click and you may see, okay, this is what I got to do. But then to do it continuously is really hard also.
Right. And the most important thing is to do it when you're tired is really, really hard. And that's when it's most important too. Mm-hmm. So, James, what were you going to say?
I was just further expanding on how you said, like, it's not natural. We're not normally horizontal unless we're sleeping. Mm-hmm. And then other things like you don't really see yourself at all, even though we don't see ourselves running and biking. But I think there's more instant feedback with running and biking that you can make the correlation to like a flaw. Mm-hmm. Like if you're biking wrong, you might fall off the bike. Yeah. So your body like just in the water, like it supports you, so you can kind of like be in a wrong position but still be like floating. So you don't know where like all the little flaws are like coming from or what's affecting or causing that flaw.
And I think something that's really, really hard is the difference in speed between like your slowest that you can swim with like good technique. Like, so we'll call it your slowest. Like I can swim at 3 minutes per 100, but not with good technique. Like you can't do it. Right. So if my slowest I can swim is 2 minutes per 100 with keeping good technique to my absolute fastest all out, isn't that much difference in speed, right? So like little tiny things might feel very different, but like they don't change your actual speed that much. So it's really hard, I think, to feel those because like the difference between running a 12-minute mile and running a 6-minute mile is huge. Mm-hmm. And you can feel that range from 12-minute to 6-minute, but the difference between 140 pace and 130 pace might feel a lot different, but actually is it? Like, and that's tough.
And that's really frustrating because you feel like you've done all this and then the reward is so tiny.
Right? You're 3 seconds faster per 100.
Yeah.
And you're a minute and a half faster over a 70.3, but
I think that's the thing is like it's not normally like it's not our fitness that it's limiting us or our strength that's limiting us in the water.
I think I don't know if you ever are really limited by fitness. Now, with that being said, like if you take the technique that you've got and you swim as hard as you can, like obviously at that point, fitness is limiting you, but there's way more gains to be had by technique improvements than there are by fitness improvements.
Exactly.
If you don't change the technique and it's keeping you from doing something, it doesn't matter how hard you work. Like it's all fitness or it's all technique at that point.
I guess it always comes down to, you've always said, like, you can't fight the water.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, she always wins. The water always wins. There's no, slow is smooth and smooth is fast. And you just have to figure out how to do that.
So it seems like because basically the density and drag in your water
Mhm.
is probably the biggest factor. That's where the biggest gains can be made. So instead of trying to look for little, 2% gains here and there's definitely like 4 major things that you can look at that will give you big, like 20% improvements, because you're going to move through the water better versus
Yeah,
fight it.
that drag thing is like, you can't. It's not even close, right? Like I had an instructor, I think it was a scuba instructor, who told me, and this blew my mind, but he was like, water is 800 times denser than air. Concrete's only 1,000 times denser.
Oh my gosh.
And it's like,
Wow.
well, shit, how the hell are you supposed to swim fast?
Yeah.
You're
Yeah.
trying to swim through concrete. And like at the end of a race, that's sort of what it feels like.
Mhm.
But the drag, it's like when we're on the bike, the faster you go, the bigger the drag component becomes, and the less of an importance things like weight and stuff like that are. In the pool, it's kind of it's more than that. It's all about drag. So you need anything you can do to improve your body position, limit the amount of frontal area you have, and it's, you want to decrease drag moving forward, and it's weird, but like increase drag pushing back. Like I want to grab a lot of water and hang on to it and create drag on like the back side of my forearm and hand. The faster I'm going to swim. So James, you said there are like 4 things.
Yeah, and I guess like backing up a little bit, like, we're basically talking about good technique and being efficient. What does that mean in swim to be efficient and have a good technique?
Right. So it's moving forward at the fastest speed with the least amount of energy or that it takes, right?
Mm-hmm.
We've talked about efficiency a bunch on here. And that's pretty much efficiency, is effort, or not effort, energy, or, in aerobic sports, it's oxygen. How much oxygen does it take to move you a given speed? So the faster you get, or the more efficient you get, it's just about using less oxygen to move faster.
Is it wrong to say too, the more efficient you are, the more distance you get per stroke?
No, I don't think that's wrong. I think that's a good way to look at it. And I think like that's a drill we do all the time in the pool, to think about like really trying to maximize that distance per stroke. To an extent, like you don't want to be gliding, really. Like there really isn't too much of a glide phase with freestyle, but you want to be maximizing, you want to be catching that water as far out in front of you as you can and holding on to it for as long as you can, so that you, like you said, travel the furthest distance with that each stroke.
And that's what it looks like when you see a good swimmer. It just looks effortless. Their
Mhm.
turnover looks smooth. It doesn't look like they're like going, like they don't look fast, but then they are
Yeah.
fast.
Mhm.
Is the best way I can describe it. Like they'll have like
Yeah.
a nice little 2-beat kick, a nice like constant turnover with their arms, steady, but they'll be like a minute 30-second per 100. And you're like, what?
Mhm.
And you're right. It doesn't look like they're going fast, but they are.
Yeah.
But now when you see like, and we're comparing this to triathlon swimmers and stuff like that, but when you see like a sprinter, like an Olympic sprinter, you would never say that.
Yeah,
You
that's
wouldn't be
violent.
like, oh, wow,
Yeah.
that's smooth. But those are such different events. Like it's really hard to compare pool swimming events to what we do in the open water, just because the distances and the times that are involved. Like it is a different thing. And even like if you talk to a swimmer, like the 50 freestyle is a different event than any other event, period.
Yeah.
The strokes look different. The tempo, or the strokes per minute, their cadence looks different. Everything looks different.
It's so much kicking.
Mhm.
So I agree with you, James, that like a smooth looking fast stroke is probably the most efficient thing. But they're still working hard, and it's just all that those calories, all that oxygen is being used to propel them forward, where somebody who's inefficient, so you might be using the same number of calories, burning the same fuel, but a lot of wasted energy.
Yep. All right, so we can go on to the. So there's four main things that are going to give you, as a triathlete, I think the biggest gains in the pool. And if you get these four things and do them in these order, you're going to have a good season. I should give credit to the Triathlon Training Bible from Joe Friel. There's a section on, I think it was either speed drills or something, but he goes into swim and basically said, these four things, if you master these, you're going to get the biggest bang for your buck. So it starts with position, direction, length, and catch. So that's position, direction, length, and catch. PDLC. Just remember that.
Come up with some mnemonic for that.
Yeah.
So let's start with position. What is, what's our goal there?
Rich?
You just want to be as horizontal as possible.
Yeah.
And as streamlined as possible. So just like you want to be in a wind tunnel tested to be the most aerodynamic, you want to be the most hydrodynamic in the water and have the water just pass by you. And for that, you need to be horizontal, least drag as possible.
Yeah. I mean, if you think about somebody moving through the water, with their head up, which is kind of common, most people are looking forward when they should probably be looking much more down. I very rarely do I see somebody who's looking too far down, but you're looking up, everything's going to, the rest of your body's going to follow. And now you're presenting a bigger kind of drag shadow to the water. Sometimes just looking down will fix that problem.
Yeah. I think that was
getting your head into the right position.
I think that was the biggest thing that helped me in the beginning when my hips and legs were dropping. It was just literally looking straight down at the black line of the pool, fixed my position versus having my kind of chin up a little bit and trying to kind of peek forward. That immediately I would just feel my body kind of, as if you're that seesaw, just start to tilt with my legs going down as soon as I looked up. So it's just really forcing myself, like head neutral, staring down at the bottom of the pool.
Yeah.
Well, one of the other things I say is you can also try to push your chest down, which if you think that, it'll help you get your legs back up because you can't physically push your chest down any lower. So like as you think about pushing your chest down, your legs will come up.
Yeah. I mean, that's a great, I remember probably 11 years old and had a coach who that was his thing. He said his thing to remind you to do it was, he said, push the T. And he wanted you to think of your collarbone, your shoulder to shoulder, and then your head and sternum making that letter T. And he's like, push that down. If you think of that all being as one piece and you just push it into the bottom of the pool, you're going to get in a good body position. And I just remember, Coach Ed always saying push the T. And that's a great sort of visual, Rich, to think about, is pushing your chest down. Another one is trying to swim downhill.
That's what I've heard too.
Yeah, I heard that is it Terry McLaughlin who does total immersion swimming?
I don't know the name.
Swimming?
I don't know her name, but I've heard of that.
It's a guy, but he was he would always say that swim downhill because his whole thing was kicking was not worth the effort. Reducing drag is the biggest thing. Try to keep your arms relaxed and almost your arms are just almost like when you're falling into your next step running. To use gravity to also do that with swimming. It was just swim downhill, he'd almost have you spear downward, which is I guess controversial, but it was basically trying to use everything to your advantage and your weight and momentum. But when you feel like going your downhill, you're probably just horizontal.
Right.
Yeah. If maybe horizontal, right? But I mean, sometimes it's crazy how big of a change just thinking about the right thing can have. That brain body connection is so strong, and I think that's why kids pick up on it so quick, because they don't have those connections made yet. So when a coach says to them swim downhill, they can literally think and feel that so much better than we can when we're in our 40s. We can't make that change as easily as they can, and they just are okay, cool, I'll swim downhill. Not wait, There's no hills. Like, there's no thought going on in that 8-year-old brain, and they just do it. And then they pick it up and they feel it. And the coach is like, yeah, do that now every time. And they just do.
So how do we, like if you're struggling with position, what are some of your favorite drills to get someone into that swimming downhill position?
Yeah. So I've seen and done this a little bit with my junior varsity kids. We literally practice floating, and we see what effect body position has on the way you float. And so like just getting comfortable with, like, we start with like just the dead man float, where you're like laying on the surface and your arms are dangling and you're like, just hanging out there for as long as you can. Sometimes we'll use snorkels to do it, and so that they can like stay there for a while and see the effect that breathing has. We'll do like an egg float where they pull their knees into their chest and like try and stay on the surface and float. And those little things like teach you what big effects your breath has on things, and they'll see like, and then we'll try and go from like the egg float to the dead man float to like stretching out and being flat and trying to float that way. And they learn what their natural tendencies are, and then they can do things to change them if they're in a bad spot. We can get to a point where they can literally float completely horizontal on the surface of the water. But it's one of those things that, and we, as triathletes, I think the pool is the hardest thing to train in, right? Like you got to drive there. You feel sometimes you only have a certain amount of time, and you're like, I got to get this workout in. I got to do this. And so the idea of like, am I going to really sit here and hold my breath and float for 10 minutes of the hour that I have? Like, is it really worth it when I could be doing a couple of hundreds? Realistically, the answer, if you're new to swimming, is probably yes. But, so I think that's another place we struggle, is like feeling like we've got to get that training stimulus out of every single session as opposed to a technique stuff. Yeah.
And we had talked about this when we were talking about periodization, that if you're in your off season, like we are right now, like this is the best time to work on those skills, build skill now on your limiters, so that, when it comes time to start building fitness, you can focus on fitness.
Yep.
That's what I did today. It's actually nice because you're not worried about trying to be faster or anything, just doing the drills and repeating the same thing over and over. It's nice.
Yeah. One of the things, go ahead.
I was just going back to like the drills that I remember doing that helped a lot was, I think it was called like Superman.
Okay, I was just go ahead.
Push off the wall, and you just push off the wall. You get into like your, kind of streamlined.
Yeah.
Try to be horizontal. Just see how far you can go across the pool, and the more like if you really work on that horizontal position, like head down, and try to be as horizontal as possible, streamline, get your feet together, like then you could go like further down the pool. And it's just feeling that feeling over and over again, practicing it without it, not kicking, nothing, just push off the wall in that position.
I think when you can feel that easy speed, that's like the best thing you can get, is just that feeling of not having to work for speed. It's like an endorphin rush, and you're like, oh, I'm going to keep doing that, But you said the Superman drill. One of the float drills we do is like we go from the dead man float, where your arms are at your side and your head's in the water, and then if you put your arms out in front of you and you go from dead man float to the Superman float, your legs will come up because you're extending the length of that front lever, and the legs come up, and like again you feel it, and then that helps when we cut into like front quadrant swimming and like trying to create all that lift at the front side of the stroke. But it's really just like training your body to understand what it feels like to be in these different positions. Because if you ask, a struggling swimmer and you say like, what do you think you look like? They're not going to describe what they actually look like, right? You think you're doing one thing and it's completely different. Like watching yourself on video is sometimes a very humbling experience. And so you need to retrain that. Like you're not doing what you think you're doing. Let's put you in the right spot and feel that and pay attention to that, and then go from there.
Do you think is it too early to use like a pull buoy at this point when you're trying to get position?
No, not at all. I think the pull buoy is probably underutilized in a lot of ways. Like, Marilyn, can I pick on you a little bit?
Yeah.
Marilyn has a really strong kick. And so that kick can help with body position a lot. And if you take that kick away, then we can see what's happening without it. And so ideally what we want to get to is a point where the pull and the body position are taking care of themselves, and you don't need the kick to supplement those. And then if you can do that, then the kick becomes pure propulsion as opposed to being a crutch. So you like the pull buoy is a phenomenal tool. It's also a great way to swim easy.
Mm-hmm.
If you're struggling, like there should be a point in your training where swimming can be easy. And if you can't do that on your own, then use some training aids, use floaty pants or a pull buoy or something like that so that you can swim easy.
I think if you say is underutilized, if there's anyone who overutilized it, I think it was me. Only because I definitely liked the easy portion of the swim and trying to feel relaxed and just get into a good position.
Yeah.
But then I think that led to bad habits of me not engaging my core at all when I would swim. And one of the things you helped me work on this past season was that I was like noodling in the water and scissor kicking outbound. So it was like really like tightening me up to be as like straight in the water as possible. I think it was because I just always used a pull buoy and would just like relax in the water and just kind of float around. I just never developed that. Core stability.
It could have been, but I mean, the thing is, if you use the pull buoy properly, like you should feel your lower half swinging to the sides. And that's the thing you said to me, Marilyn, right? Was that you hated using the pull buoy because you felt like you were all over the place.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Now, and I've gotten better with it, now, but in the beginning it was really hard for me.
Right. And I think like that being able to now keep your body in a straight line. And I think that's our next kind of thing is direction, right? Is, being able to keep your body in that straight line is a matter of like being able to engage that full core. Yeah. And that's not, we're not used to doing that. We're not used to doing it when we're also in this, like you're used to holding your whole body weight up vertically, not having the water buoy up 90% of you. And now you only weigh 10% of what you do and you're horizontal. Like it's weird.
Yeah. And to be horizontal and needing to engage your core, it's just natural to just let it be loose because you're laying down.
You're laying down. You're right. Exactly. Yeah. I never even thought of that. That makes a lot of like the only times we lay down are when we're relaxed. Right?
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Basically, it was like being like dead in the water and just kind of moving my arms a little bit.
Yeah.
was how I was swimming. I probably still do it. I don't know.
No, you swim like a little angry.
I probably am angry too.
God damn it! It's 5:30 in the morning and I'm sitting here swimming. Yeah.
All right. So position. Once you get position locked down, you're able to stay horizontal. You got as minimum, like frontal drag at that point if you're in a good position.
Right. So I think the two big tools for that are going to be a pull buoy, like you said, and a snorkel. You know. Those two things allow you to not have to move very much, and therefore, anytime you do move, you should be able to feel it. So,
and the snorkel is scary at first, but I love it now.
You love it? Wow! Yeah. James took like 4 months to get from 40% to like 83%. You love it.
He was drowning himself.
I know.
It was. Yeah. And when I was doing drills with it later, like the one arm drill, then the fear of the snorkel came back.
Yeah. Oh. I do think the snorkel is a very valuable tool because you don't have to worry about the breathing. Like eventually you will have to, but if you can get everything right without it, then you just have to add the breathing instead of trying to figure it out at the same time. One skill at a time is the best way to learn the swimming.
Yeah. I think that's what you have to keep in mind for all these tips, cues, and drills. It's like you work on one skill. Don't try to do it all at once.
Right.
So we're assuming we have position now solid, we can now move on to direction. What is direction?
So I think there's a bunch of different directions that could be wrong. You want everything focused on pushing you straight forward, right? So you almost want to be moving all your movements to be straight forward and back and not have too many things crossing your body. And I think that's where there's a lot of like, those are inefficiencies that are going to slow you down or not let you reach your maximum, I guess. So you want to be putting your arms into the water in the right direction. A lot of people, super common, is to cross over. Like, so you put your hand in line with your head and not with your shoulder. So one of the things I tell my swimmers is you want your hands to be going in at like 11 and 1 o'clock, not 12 o'clock. And just doing that will help prevent that crossover. Now, when I was a kid, they used to actually teach freestyle with like an S shape. Like you wanted to make like an S shape with your hand. And I still have the remnants of that. Like I still have to fight that. That's my main stroke flaw that I'd probably have to spend, I don't know how many hours in the pool to overcome that, but I'm still going to always have that little bit of a like reach in. But then when you do that, water's falling off your hand and your forearm. So like what angle your hand goes into the water, you want to get it in as far in front of you as you can. But then a little bit of a downward 45-degree angle kind of down to full extension. Again, you don't want to cross over. You just are giving away so much propulsion when you're crossing over.
And crossing over is really bad on your shoulders, right? It can be
and it's gonna put way more strain on them. Whenever a kid tells me like, "Oh, my shoulders are hurting," like that's a sign to me that they're doing something wrong. Like the natural swim stroke should really not be causing any kind of issues. It's a pretty structural, like it just doesn't cause too much stress on your joints and stuff.
And when you cross over, does that put you just in a weaker position to catch and pull? Is that why it's inefficient?
Right. It's inefficient in that way, but it's also so your goal is to grab as much water as you can and then pull it behind you and hold on to as much of it as you can the whole length of the stroke. So the longer you can grab onto that water, the better. If your hand's crossing over, then that water can like slide off of your hand and forearm. So you're like scrubbing speed. You're scrubbing water when you cross over. And you're talking, James, about crossing over like in front of your face, right?
Yeah. So like
Yes.
you're passing that center line,
Yeah.
going over and pulling like that.
Yeah. So that's gonna. I'd almost love to see like, again, we don't really have power meters for swimming. I think they're kind of getting close. But I'd love to see if that's where the true problem is, or that sets you up for a much weaker pull through the middle and like power part of the stroke. And I think it's probably a combination of both. So I always, again, like put yourself in a vertical position. Imagine somebody put a rope in front of you and said like, pull this rope with as much force as you can, like from above your head straight down. You're never going to reach across your body and pull it down over here. You're going to pull it like straight down in line with your shoulder. Right?
Yeah,
like
get more leverage.
Yeah, you're going to get more leverage.
So stacked like that.
Right. So put your body in that position just horizontal, and that's where you want to be when you're swimming.
It's a good cue.
There's another thing to try. You can go to the edge of the pool and put your arm on the edge of the pool and pull yourself up or out.
Mm-hmm.
And if you put two hands in front of you and you put it where your head is and try to pull yourself out of the water,
you're never getting out.
You're never getting it. But if you put it where you need it to be and use your the right technique, muscles, you'll get yourself out, and that's what you want.
Yeah,
underwater too.
Yeah, and I think that's.
I've also heard a nice, like you said, 11 and 1. I've heard, imagine you're swimming on railroad tracks, and your arms want to enter where the railroad tracks are.
And that's what so that's my cue when I'm trying to work on my stroke. Except I try and, because like my hands go in an okay spot. It's that I'll have that hand come underneath my knee and like get to my belly button. So I do that the whole way through, and I like look at a line in the tiles, and I like try and keep that hand in line with the tiles the whole way back. Because that's, again, like I know that's my stroke flaw. Like that's the thing I have to work on. And that like it's swimming is all about finding that cue to like reinforce the movement, and once you can find those, then you make improvements.
Do you have any go-to recommended drills for people who may be struggling with crossing over?
So I really like the catch-up drill. And if they cross over, what I'll actually do is give them something to hold on to, like a ruler or a piece of PVC pipe or something like that.
Or a kickboard.
A kickboard, if you don't have anything else, a kickboard works. But I like something that doesn't kind of get in the way. And that way, like if you give them a 12-inch, like a ruler, and they hold onto it with one hand and then they do the catch-up drill and like literally have to grab it on the other side with the other hand. And before they start the next stroke, like you force their hands to reach out in that, 11-1 position. So that's kind of like when you use some kind of tool to implement that change, if they can't just do it with visual or like mental like cues and talking them through it. But yeah, the catch-up drill is good because then you can like see both hands next to each other. And if the hands are touching each other, you're like, okay, they can't touch each other. Like keep the hands spread apart. But if that doesn't work, then something about a foot, 16 inches wide that you can grab onto. Kickboard works.
That's great because then you don't even, it's like all self-feedback. You see it right in front of you. You don't need someone else telling you did it if you did it right or not.
Yeah.
That's where the snorkel is so helpful too, because you're not worried about breathing and you can actually look at what you're doing.
You can see what you're doing for sure.
See what you're doing.
And this might seem really simple, but another thing with somebody who crosses over, tell them to swim, like try and swim as wide as you can. Like try and put your hands in it, 10 and 2 or whatever. And you can't do it. So they're going to put their hand. And then if you have a coach on deck, it's easy to be like, okay, that was actually where they're supposed to go in. Like it's going to feel like they're going to feel like they're swimming, doing the YMCA thing, but they're probably in the right position.
Yeah. So you over exaggerate.
Well, you tell them to think that they're over exaggerating, but they won't be able to because they're doing it so wrong. Right. Exactly. But you need the coach on deck to be like, no, that, and give them that feedback that it's the right position.
So if you don't have a coach on deck, then try to film it if you can. If your facility allows you to film swimming or not.
Yeah, some don't.
Unofficially, officially. I don't know.
Oh, is that James? What you have on here, the penguin drill?
That's what they call the penguin.
I've never heard the penguin drill.
What's that? Wilder.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's right, but I had someone tell me in the very beginning to try to aim my hands towards the corner of the pool to make me go out wider.
Yeah, I can see that. And then you're like also trying to make that Y, but you won't really be able to do it.
Yeah, I like that.
I hope everyone's who's listening to the show is taking notes because you stack all these little tips in together.
But don't try and do them all at once, right?
Right. One thing at a time. Oh my God.
Even if it's just one day, like you're like, okay, today I'm going to work on this thing. Like that's good. And then make it regular, make it normal, and then move on to the next thing.
I mean, we don't really talk about it here on the outline, but I mean, like legs too, you have to really think about direction, like pointing your toes straight back. That's what I struggle with a lot. But really, like your whole body, just this straight line, like a torpedo in the water.
For the kick, I like to think you want your big toes to kind of almost brush each other. Like that's kind of the visual. So that's not necessarily helping you point your toes, but that's your feet should be that close.
And that was probably one of the biggest changes you helped me with was having the strap around my ankles in swimming.
Yeah.
To keep them close and in a straight line versus scissoring was game changer, I would say. Also made me feel like I was going to drown as well. Because I think the first time I did that, I didn't realize I was supposed to.
Right, we put the strap with the pull buoy and then the snorkel. Like we just,
I think I didn't use the pull buoy. I didn't realize I was
my
supposed to use
feet
the
just
pull
went
buoy.
down.
I was like,
And it shows you how much you rely on your kick.
Yep.
Yeah.
Definitely. All right.
So you have something. Yeah, you have something interesting on the show notes that I think is a great thing to think about, and that is length.
That's the next. Yep. So once we've got position, direction, now we're going to focus on length. That's how long can you make your body in the water? And I guess if you can make yourself long in the water, that's going to solve a lot of problems.
Yeah, there are no fast boats that are short. Like, they're just, nobody designs tugboats to go fast.
Yeah, so we're having the notes. It's a speedboat versus a tugboat. You think about those shapes. Speedboat's going to be thin and streamlined and long, versus a tugboat is just fat and wide.
Yeah. And I saw that and I thought you were talking about me, but you have to,
Sure.
and I tell my swimmers, like, and this isn't a, you have to be tall to be a good swimmer. That's not what we're saying. It's what's so funny, Rich?
Just like the body geometry or whatever of like some swimmers, there's definitely advantages if your arms are longer and you can grab more water.
Right. And if we get to the Olympic end of things, like there is a certain phenotype that is associated with success at that level.
Shorter legs.
Right. Short legs, long arms, long torso. Like, James, I feel like that's you, right?
Yeah,
but I have short arms as a problem.
Do you?
So I've got I have short legs, long torso, but short arms.
You could have gotten the long arms gene.
Close.
Yeah, so close.
So close.
Missed opportunity.
Yeah. Just gonna quit.
But like, it's not a matter of like, you can be a very good swimmer and be on the shorter side of things. It's more like, can you stretch your body out to its maximum and take advantage of all the length you have? One of the things I tell my swimmers all the time is like, none of them are 6 foot or taller, but I'm like, swim like you're 6 feet tall. Like, try and make yourself 6 feet tall in the water.
Yeah.
And that gives them, again, the visual or the thought of like stretching everything out.
I try and think I try and think of myself like if I'm trying to reach for something that's up too high. So when I reach in front of me,
So
trying
that's
to stretch
a great,
like something's really high. I gotta reach
right.
for it.
If you this happened to any of you guys, I mean, not Marilyn, but anybody at the supermarket get asked to reach for things?
I'm the one that's asking.
I would say that 70% of the time I go to the supermarket, somebody asks me to get something off the top shelf for them. It makes me feel useful, which is nice. But like, if you're reaching for something, you're never going to stand dead square to that thing and just lift your arm up to reach it, right? Like, you're going to turn on your tippy toes and reach up to get it. And nobody does that in the water then. But that's key.
And that's how you really maximize your length. And that's actually one of the drills here, that if you're struggling with that feeling, is you stand in front of a wall and then just like reach up and just keeping your shoulders and hips square to the wall. Like, how high can you reach if your feet are flat on the ground, your shoulders and hips are square to the wall, you're going to be limited to what you can reach. And now you do the same thing, but get up on your toes, really, really reach up there. Naturally, your shoulders will rotate, your hips are going to rotate, and now you're probably going to grab at least another good 6 inches or more.
It is. I mean, for me, it was, so you put this in the show notes, and I went to one of the days in practice, I was trying to show this to the kids, and I did it like on the tile wall at the pool, and it was a full 6 inches taller versus me, flat-footed, with my hand up against the wall as much as I could, and then turning tippy toes, rotating everything. It was, 6 inches taller. So, I mean, every stroke, that's a big difference. When you take 13 strokes, 14 strokes down the length of a pool, every time, it's 7 feet longer. That's a big difference. The pool's 2 yards shorter because of that. That's big.
And so that's like the biggest, when we're reaching like that, we're becoming more streamlined, right? Like when we're rotating in the water like that. This is what I think I struggled the most with, is that in my head, I think I'm a very flat swimmer. I'm not sure. In some ways, I think I over-rotate my head too much, but I think my body is too flat, and I'm struggling with this that rotation of reaching. I don't think I feel like I ever reach enough in the water.
That's what I worked on today.
Yeah.
I think one of my favorite drills to do, and I don't know if it's particular to the reach, is to reduce the number of strokes going down the length of the pool. So, the way that happens for me is the longer the reach, the less the amount of strokes going down the pool, which is a good thing to work on.
We're laughing because we see Greg's son in the background dancing.
Waving at you guys, saying hello.
So that was one schedule. Thing I think, Greg, you helped me with. I keep everyone's gonna be like, "Oh, Greg."
That's fine.
James
That's fine. Go see Greg.
How much Greg helped me. You had told me like reach out into the water as far as I can, and then that's when I started really seeing a big difference in my swim. I think when I was normally swimming about like 155 per 100 in my sets, then I started dropping down to the 140s, sometimes even the 130s. I just started reaching out as far as I possibly could for each stroke, and all of a sudden I just got faster. Now I started getting self-conscious about it. I think I moved away from it, because then I think I didn't realize it's not a bad thing, but I was kind of swimming very straight-armed, high hand in the water, out of the water, not with like, the elbow. But apparently that's fine for triathlon.
Yeah, I don't think there's any problem with, like, I think you see some people who kind of have that windmill out of the water. If you have the shoulder mobility to do it, then I don't think it's too much of a problem. Like, and even if you don't, go ahead.
No, sorry, go ahead. Even if you don't.
Yeah, even if you don't have the shoulder mobility, you can still swim with like a really high elbow recovery and still get that hand out there before you put it into the water. You're always going to have like that stabbing, like where your hand's going in, and like as you rotate, it's going to go into the water and like stretch out in front of you. But the further you can get out there, the better. Like if you put your hand in next to your ear and try and do that all underwater, your hands are going to go down too deep. You're going to miss out on the catch. It's going to create more drag. Like, yeah, you still might get kind of into the same position, but you're not maximizing it. Where if you put the hand in, if you move it through the air as much as you can, you're reducing that drag through the water,
I think that's exactly what you said to me, and it never clicked to me, because I used to always kind of put my hand in near my head and just like try to spear through the water forward, thinking like, oh, I need to reach and extend, but not realizing all that is just fighting this 800 times the density of air against my arm, just slowing me down each time I went to go reach. So it was like, why not do it out of the water where there's no drag?
Mm-hmm. You don't necessarily, and the only potential flaw in that idea is if you start reaching so much that your hand isn't the first thing going in, and you're like, if you're slapping and the elbow is coming into the water first, that's going to put the brakes on you. I think that happens
to me sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
They call that like the death position.
Yeah, you don't want that to happen. So if you can get right up to that, but you still want the fingertips to be the first thing in the water, then as long as you're doing that, there's not too far out in front that you can be.
Rich, do you have a favorite way to be as long as possible in the water?
I kind of like, the one thing is to hope to try to get less strokes down the pool, but the other thing is you go in.
Is that what you said? Just hope it?
You hope for it. I hope for so much when I swim.
The other thing is you reach forward, you have your you try to enter at 11 and 1, but you also try to reach so your head is kind of going to be touching your arm. I see a lot of people with leaving a lot of space or kind of not reaching fully or starting to pull early. But if you kind of reach and make sure that your head is kind of, or your ear is touching your arm, I think that extends your reach a little bit or a lot.
Yeah. As long as you don't do it by moving your head. So sometimes people will be like, oh, my chin's got to be close to my shoulder or whatever. And they'll do it by going like this, as opposed to like using the shoulder to do it.
Right.
But yeah, that's a great point.
So any other drills people recommend?
I like the ones you've got on here, James. The slap drill.
The slap drill, which is weird. They say it's like you try to mimic like you're gonna throw a baseball. So I feel like it should be like the pitching drill, but it's called the slap drill.
I guess because you want your hand to like slap the water.
Yeah, because you're trying to reach out as far as you can. Like I guess you're like kind of extending your hand out, and if you do it right, then like you said, your hand will hit the water first. So if you were throwing, imagine yourself throwing a ball, but you're horizontal in the water, you'd really have to extend that hand and arm out fully. Right. If you do it right, your hand will hit the water first. And so you just mimic that baseball throwing motion as much as possible in the water to really get extension above the water versus you're not going to throw a baseball like that.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, I think that's a good way to do it. So a couple of things to think about there. And then our last one is the catch, right?
Yes, the catch. The hardest, I think that's probably the hardest part of the swim, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, probably.
And when they laid out these 4 kind of things to work on, like they say, like you can't go to the catch unless you've mastered
all the others.
Your length, and if you don't go into length if you haven't mastered position. So it all kind of builds on each other.
Yeah, you have to put your body in the right position to do the next step. And you need those first 3 before you can start worrying about the catch. And unfortunately, like you said, the catch is probably the most difficult, but also the one that's going to I feel like the catch is going to be the one that makes you feel like you're swimming the fastest. Because now you're moving stuff behind you, like you're actually exerting force. So it's like, that's the one you want to work on, right? That's the one you feel like is going to make you the fastest, when in reality, you need all these 4 parts to really take advantage of a good, efficient freestyle.
How about somebody break down what is exactly the catch, like for a new swimmer, in simplest, or at what point are you doing the catch?
I mean, ideally you want, so the idea behind the catch is like, you're literally catching the idea, or the thought is you're catching water. You're right. You're hoping that you catch water. But so you've got the first part of the stroke where your hand is coming into the water, and you're kind of getting it in position for that catch. And that kind of goes with being long in the water, having a good body position to put that arm into the right spot. And then So the easiest way to think about it is not that you're pushing water, but almost that you're putting your hand into the water and your hand is staying in the same spot, but you're pulling your body past that spot. So like, you've got a ladder on the side of the pool. Like if you grabbed onto that ladder and pulled your body past it, you almost put yourself in the perfect like catch phase for the swim stroke. And your goal is like hang on to that ladder for as long as you can. Like you reach out, you grab it way in front of you, and then to pull your body past it, you're going to pop your elbow into a high position and you're going to hold on to it all the way until it goes till full extension. So the catch is really about, catching water. I think that's probably just a feel more than anything. And holding onto it for as long as you can in the stroke.
So why is a catch so difficult?
Because you're trying to hold water and water's slippery and water is, like going to slide off of you. And it's easy to hold on to something solid and it's not easy to hold on to water.
I mean, the big thing you always hear is high elbow catch. It's like,
everyone
tells you high elbow catch.
Right. And I think it's probably a huge misnomer on what that actually means, because you say high elbow catch and the thought is your elbow should be high in relation to, I guess, the surface of the water.
High in the water.
That's what most people would think. You really just want your elbow higher than your wrist or your hand. So it can happen. Your upper arm doesn't need to be like up here in line with your shoulder. That would actually be a pretty inefficient. Again, like imagine you're pulling a rope. You wouldn't want to pull it out at 90 degrees to your body. You wouldn't pull it out wide. You'd pull it in line with your shoulder, but you also wouldn't pull it down like you're tugging on the, like the trucker, like, you'd have that elbow up high, and the elbow would be in that high leverage position. So it's one of those things, you see it from the side. And that's really, you need to see yourself underwater from the side to know if you're in that high elbow position. And so if you draw a line from your wrist to your shoulder, okay, straight line from wrist to shoulder, your elbow needs to be above that line. And the longer you can keep it above that line, the better you are.
And that's going to give us, instead of only using our hand as like the paddle, now our whole
whole forearm
to fingertip is now a paddle in the water.
Yeah. Right. And it creates some leverage. It reduces drag. Like there's a bunch of benefits to being in that position.
And now I see like elite swimmers, I think it seems like what they're really good is when they're out reaching, they're able to get into the catch pretty early.
Very early.
Versus like pulling your arm back and then getting into the catch.
Right. So it's about maximizing how long you can be in that powerful position. And a lot of that comes down to mobility of the shoulder and putting it in the right position and stuff like that.
So I thought it was interesting. So with triathlon, and I don't know if we're just, I don't know if since we're not experts in any one sport, we had to kind of do all three.
Yeah.
And we just kind of do what is the most efficient. They talk about in the triathlon training Bibles, kind of throw away what traditional like pool swimmers focus on, which is like a high elbow recovery out of the water, doing like a fingertip drag, reaching under the water like you're putting your arm through a sleeve. He says don't even worry about any of that stuff because a lot of this may not translate in competition and open water swimming. I know Rich has a beautiful, I think, high elbow. He's really good with the finger drag. So like, how do we, I guess, adapt for open water swimming?
I don't know if there's too much change that needs to be made for open water. I do agree with what you said, though, for sure. Like, you can't necessarily translate what elite pool swimmers are doing to what we're trying to do. Like, one, we're not very good. Like, we're not, like,
we know.
Like, none of us are great swimmers. And even like the pointy end of a triathlon race is nothing compared to elite level, even masters swimmers. So there's like a snowman sitting on my thing and Logan's laying on the floor.
Oh, there he is.
And he's wiggling the snowman. I thought it was the dog.
I was wondering what was
yeah, no, I see you.
I was like,
yeah. So like we're not trying to swim a 50 freestyle or a 200 freestyle as fast as we can. We're trying to be moving through the water with as little energy use as possible so that we have some energy left for the bike and the run, which are the big, things that decide how fast we're going to actually be. So we can't look at them and say like, oh, they do this, we should do that.
I have to stop looking at Katie Ledecky? No way.
Yeah.
Her 1500 is amazing.
Right. If you're going to look at somebody, look at Katie Ledecky, but she's also got shoulder mobility that you and I, Rich, will never have, right?
Yeah,
like
wow.
she could like lick her elbow and we can't.
What?
Like it's just not going to happen. Try it, James. Go ahead. Almost.
Can you say what else she can do so we can see if James will try to do it?
Let's see. Can you do it? Oh, look at
Close. James is still trying.
That is tough.
Yeah.
You got some time to work on it. Come back to us.
Nope, not that way.
I was thinking outside the box.
Yeah. So like we do have differences in that. Like we want to be, truly efficient with our swim stroke and use the least amount of energy to go an acceptable speed. Like it's not all about all out speed for us. So what the heck were we talking about
The catch.
before Logan?
The catch.
Catch.
Yeah.
I mean, so I guess maybe we should talk about, we touch upon like avoiding the most common flaw.
hmm Which
He
is
froze. He froze.
No, he's trying.
This is
Fake his
a,
ass. Blinking.
pregnant pause. The elbow dropping below the hand.
oh, he
Power
is
of
actually
shot.
freezing.
He is
Oh.
freezing.
See, you said it. Now it's happening.
He's pulling a Rich on us.
So if you let
Say that
your
again.
if you let your elbow drop below your hand,
Yeah.
you lose all power in the water.
Yeah.
You're dead in the water at that point.
hmm
Not dead in the water. You're just not using all of the power that you can use.
Yeah, I mean, it's amazing though how much of a difference it makes when that elbow drops.
Yeah.
But you're not losing it all, but because then like even if you think about it, like you want to even keep your hand pushing behind you. If the elbow drops, like now how do you
Pushing down.
like what do you do with that hand? Like how do you,
Mm.
you have to like cup it? It's a weird thing to try and right.
It's
a
like
very
Tyrannosaurus T-Rex arms.
T-Rex
in the water.
arms. Yeah.
Yeah.
In observing other people, one of the things that I see a lot is the not full extension. Usually, like the first few, whatever hundreds they do, they're good. And then as they get more tired,
Mm.
they shorten that extension and they pull out at their hips. And I see that so often. And you're just losing so much of your stroke that way.
Yeah. Yeah. You want to make sure that you're extending all the way through. I like to think like my thumb is hitting like mid thigh. It's kind
Right.
of a good, spot probably for most people. But yeah, it's all about like how long can you hold on to that water.
Mm.
And I think breaking it down, I like to do a lot of sculling. So you're not really moving. You put fins on, you put a snorkel on, and you just work through a couple of different spots in the stroke with a skull, and then try and like incorporate that feeling into the next. So we do sculling out front, we do sculling in the middle, we do sculling at the end, and then now try and turn that into the full stroke.
That's hard.
It-
The end sculling is hard.
It's very hard, but once you can do it, like now you have that feel for just like, okay, just push the water past my leg, and eventually you're able to hang on to it all the way to the end.
And so the goal is to feel that resistance of the water from start all the way down to your leg.
All the way down to the end. Yeah.
Like you said, when you did like an S, it slips a little bit.
Yep.
And that's what you want to avoid, feeling any slip. It's just
Right.
constant kind of pressure.
Yeah. And I think that S came from like trying to keep the underwater part of the stroke as, I don't know if long's the right word, but you wanted your hand underwater for as long as possible because the idea was you're pulling water when it's underwater, make it longer, as opposed to being the most direct mover of water, which is just push it straight back.
Mm. I know.
You
I
want
used
to go
struggle
faster,
too.
you increase your stroke rate.
I used to struggle too, not only with the elbow dropping, but as I would get closer to my hip, I would start to turn my hand to the side as if because I was trying to get my elbows to start doing the recovery.
Yeah.
So I would just basically release all that water just mid-stroke and just let it slip. And basically, like I just feel like all of a sudden my hand is going through the water nice and easy and losing that resistance down to my mid leg or there.
Yeah.
It was just all lost. So it was huge inefficiency.
Yeah. Rich, what's that drill you like to do? Right? The
I
flick
like
drill?
Put the buoy, touch the buoy
Yeah.
drill.
Right.
Or something like that. So it
Touch
forces
the
you to fully extend so you can touch the pull buoy.
Like swim with, go ahead, explain it. Because I
So
feel
you
like
put the
Yeah.
pull buoy between your legs so you're not kicking. And you're entering the water and you do the full pull and you fully extend and you have to touch the pull buoy with your fingers at the end. Before
on the
you-
back side or the front side? Back side, right?
Where?
Yeah, the
Underneath?
backside above
Yeah.
the water.
Above the water.
Oh.
So it forces you, like literally over forces you to do
I'm
that.
trying to imagine this.
Maybe
You
your
don't
short
have to-
arms aren't enough to do
Yeah.
it, James.
I can't.
You don't even
I
have
like
to use the
the-
pull buoy. You just need to like figure a spot, you're gonna. It's hard without it. You just have to,
Yeah.
like
Like
Greg
the
said,
crease of your
mid-thigh.
the
Yeah,
crease
but
of
why do you
your
have to touch
shorts.
there? I don't get that.
He just likes to touch his butt.
So
You touch the pull buoy,
okay.
the buoy.
Yeah.
I
Whatever
like
you call
the
it.
drill that Greg gave me for the catch, where you only have a paddle on one hand, so on your other arm you want to try and feel kind of that resistance, right? That
Yeah.
you feel in the hand with the
right.
paddle.
So swim with a paddle on one hand and try and make the other hand
feel the same.
feel the same way. Like it really forces you to try and because like the paddle is a huge increase in surface area. You're grabbing tons of water. You almost can't not have a good catch with a paddle on.
Right.
You have to make the other hand feel the same way, and you have to maximize everything.
I did that with the fist drill.
So like one hand with a fist, the other hand without it.
Yeah.
Similar.
So the fist is like, not pulling anything, and then the
Yeah.
other hand is the paddle.
And the thing
Yeah.
with the fist, right? If you don't get into a catch and high elbow, you're not going to
You're
move
not going
any water.
anywhere.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, the fist.
And the
is,
thing with that is you have to have a good catch with your hand. So if, like me, I don't have either one. So I need the paddle to really feel it.
yeah.
I always think the fist drill comes in handy on mass starts too.
You're
Work
just,
on some skills. Yeah.
yeah.
You start punching everyone around you. Which reminds me, so I mean, there's other drills, but my favorite thing to do with the paddle too is I don't put my hands, through the wrist strap, maybe?
Right. You just
Yeah.
put it on the one finger.
Just on the finger, and then it forces me to keep the elbow high.
Yep. Yeah, because
So
the paddle will like flutter if you let that
Hold
wrist
on.
drop. The paddle will flutter.
And if your hand goes out of position or goes to the side, then it's just gonna. I mean, the paddle is really easy to feel if you're slipping too, but
Yeah.
it won't even like stay on your hand then, unless you're like perpendicular, point
Yeah.
perpendicularly.
I've seen these really cool things, and I've never tried them because they're not easy to find. Nobody like mass produces them, but it's this weird paddle where you like grip onto a like almost like a tube or like a handle, but then the flat paddle surface is on your forearm. So like you're holding onto something in your hand, and then the paddle's here, and so it forces you to get into that high elbow, vertical forearm position.
Is that similar to the torpedo thing
what
that James and I have tried? Do you know what I'm talking
you
about? The
mean
red things.
I think I know that's something different I was going to talk about next, but yeah, I guess it sounds like what Greg is saying is like it's
the paddle it
Yeah.
increases the surface area on your forearm. So like imagine the fist drill. Like the fist drill, the goal is feel the water on your forearm, but it's hard because there's not too much surface area there, and it's a tube. It just water doesn't hold on to it. So this creates a flat surface there, so you can actually feel if your forearm's in the right spot. I forget what the name is. I'm going to look them up and I'll put them in the show notes. But
the other.
There's
thing we're talking
there's
about, and
another one
Greg
that goes
tried it.
around the forearm that keeps your wrist from bending. But that's not what you're talking about.
That's not what I'm talking about. Those are Finis makes them. I forget what they're called.
I have a set of them. They look like weird.
Like a figure 8 or like an infinity sign. Yeah.
I feel like you're gonna break your arm using them or something.
I used
Right.
to do that.
Yeah. They help. I think they help keep the wrist kind of straight and from collapsing. I don't know if they
Yeah.
put the elbow and the shoulder into the right position, but
Right.
It definitely helps turn that into one piece, the hand and the forearm.
There's that other implement that I have some version of it, but then at Bethany, the other Greg, has these things that look almost like the insert you put into a shoe,
Yeah, exactly.
and then it's like where the toe box would be. You put that in your hand, and you try the version that I had, but it's rounded. It almost looks like just like the front end of a shoe support thing, and you hold it in your hand, and if your hand is not perfect, you don't move any water at all because it's a curved
Slips
surface.
right through.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And when you tried it, Greg, you're like, if that's what swimming felt like, you would just quit.
I would
'cause
quit.
It was just so hard to grab
Right.
water. Like you have like a 0.1% margin of like having it right.
Yeah.
Well, I have news for Greg. That's what it feels like for us that started later in life.
And we didn't quit.
Well, then you
we
guys are
didn't quit.
tougher than me. That's for there's nobody would question that.
I wonder
Yeah.
if those things are called lane by Lane Gainer. They're called elbow catch paddles,
I'll have to find them.
and they're like
I
a
don't-
paddle on your wrist.
Share your screen.
I think they're called tech paddles. I have
While
to-
you guys are looking that up,
Yeah.
there's this drill. If
Yeah.
you don't know what a catch position should feel like, you do this out of the pool, stand on pool deck, hands at your side,
Mm.
stand bent at the waist, like 90 degrees. So imagine your torso is what's in the water.
Mhm.
Reach out as far as you can with one arm. Keep your elbow straight. And then basically so your arm is straight out, elbow straight, and then just point your fingers down to the floor while you're bent over.
Uh-huh.
And that's basically what your catch should look like in the water, if that made sense.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense.
And then it goes
Um,
back to that drill Rich had talked about earlier. When you're in the water at the side of the pool, and if you wanted to push yourself out of the water, you'd have your hands kind of shoulder width pressing against there.
Mhm.
That's also the same like power position you'd be in. You wouldn't want to have, like you said, your hands close to the center and trying to push. You'd have them like shoulder width, pool deck, and then you can push yourself out of the water. That's how you want to be as you're pushing through the water as well.
Yeah. So I found these paddles. Can I share my screen? Can you guys see that?
I don't see anything being shared.
No.
No? Oh, hold on.
I don't think you shared.
Oh, something's coming.
There we go.
What the?
So
What is that?
your hand is on this tube, and then this part is on your forearm.
Huh.
Yeah.
You can kind of
Oh.
see like the hand is going to grab the handle there, like make a fist around that tube, and then this big flat part is going to be up on the guy's forearm.
That's
Oh.
cool.
Yeah.
Swimming
Oh,
faster
God.
starts by
Oh, okay. We can
Oh,
insert
that was
videos
loud.
now. We've gone high
Yeah.
tech.
I know.
Tech paddle. All right. If you guys need
That looks
Oh.
like
looking for a team to
Looks like a
sponsor.
medieval
a
torture
serious
device.
contraption.
It is, right? Yeah, I don't even know.
That looks serious.
Yeah.
I mean, swimming's got so many gadgets too, though. Like I have,
Yes, there are tons
Yeah.
of.
Yeah.
Do I stop that? All right.
and I still suck at it.
Right. I know.
Yeah, I do think that is a huge part of it, and that's the end of our notes, right? So we're getting close.
There's one more drill, windmill drill, if
Okay.
to try to force yourself into that position.
Yeah. We don't swim enough, is what it comes down to. To get better at a skill, who's the guy who says 10,000 hours? Like,
Hasn't that been debunked?
yeah, but the gist of it is correct. Anything that is a skill takes time to learn, and we don't spend enough time doing it. Like, Logan just started swimming on a club team this year, and he spends about 6 hours a week in the pool, and he's 9. Like, and that's not, James, how much time does Vivian spend in the pool?
I mean, they're usually doing 1.5 or 2 hours each session.
Is
6
she
days
5
a
or
week.
6 days? 6 days a week. And you're
Yeah.
at 12 hours a week for a 10-year-old. If you you look at a high end, like I think didn't Lucy Charles Barkley just say that right in the block before Kona she was swimming like 60 or
50K.
70K a week?
Yeah.
Yeah.
We don't run that much. She's
Yeah.
swimming that much,
Yeah.
right? Like,
How do you really feel?
not for nothing. Like, you want to get better at something, you do it a lot.
Mhm.
And the average triathlete isn't going to put that kind of time into it.
2 hours a week, probably.
Right. I mean, if you want to be on like actual swimming time,
Or even less.
right.
But we also have to be practicing like the right things.
Yes. And I think
That's-
we gave a good idea on like what those right things are. And I think if you focus on those correct things, you're going to see improvements. But you also have to temper that with like, if you're swimming 2 minutes and 30 seconds per 100, you're not going to suddenly become a 110 freestyler. Like that's unrealistic and not going to happen. I mean, there's Lionel Sanders swam in a Masters swim meet a couple of weeks ago, and like he was like mid pack, like he was middle of the group in this thing, and he's a world class triathlete, and he was putting up times that are on par with like a decent 13 or 14-year-old girl, right? But I bet if you looked at yardage, he's probably swimming about the same amount of yardage as a decent 13 or 14-year-old girl is swimming. Now, he's running and cycling and like, but if you want to get really good, it takes a ton of work to get really, really good.
I think that's the frustrating part about this is that to get good at swim, we have to dedicate a lot of time to swim.
But swim is such a small part of the race that
exactly,
like, why do you want to dedicate that much time to it?
So that's
and
like
it's time consuming. It takes a lot of time. You have to go to the pool. You have to it's just a lot.
But we all want to be faster and better in the swim. So it's like, I don't know what it is. It's something. It just looks so. It looks so nice to be smooth and fast in the water, be super efficient, not get really tired and burnt out from the beginning of the race. Like it just looks, that seems like such a dream scenario to have. And you're just getting on you're ahead of everyone coming out of the water. You're not bunched up on the bike now, so you don't have to surge past everybody. It just feels like it'll set you up. But it's like I said, it's like we have to spend so much time just to make small gains for such a short portion of the race.
Yeah. And then your question, and then that gets in your head. You're like, why am I even trying to do this?
Yeah, exactly. Why am I putting all this effort? Mm-hmm.
But it would be nice to be outside of like the middle of the pack and not be in the congested part of the swim where there's the most people. It would be nice to get a little less congested in the bike because you're just slightly better.
Mm-hmm. And Rich has said this before in the past a bunch of times, like, getting better at the swim is not just about being faster in the pool or in the swimming. It has benefits later on in the race. You have less energy to go a little bit faster, but then you have more energy for the bike. You have more energy for the run. You have the things like you said, you're out in front of that gigantic mass of people in a big race. Like there's huge benefits to it. So working on your swim is not, like a fool's errand. You're still getting big benefits from it, even if it's only a couple of seconds per 100.
And it does happen. Like I wouldn't say this past season I got very much faster, but I think I did get more efficient probably because I felt better at the end. And sometimes you have to remind yourself that because it does get frustrating when you're like, oh, I'm doing all this, I'm still not faster.
Yeah.
But this
is
feel
a family
better.
podcast, so we can't share some of the text Marilyn sent me.
Yeah. But you do feel better if you stick with it.
We haven't even talked about translating this though into the open water. So like you can do all this stuff in the pool.
Yeah.
And then you get into open water and it's just like
it's a different beast, right?
It's like that Mike Tyson quote of everyone has a plan to get punched in the face.
Yep.
Like if your first time getting into open water is at the race, like you just got punched in the face. Like
100%. There's no way you're, like I'm at a point now, and I'm not swimming as much as I should. There's not a huge difference between what I can do in the pool versus the open water. Those times are within 3 to 5 seconds per 100 of each other. But I think the less experience you have, the bigger of a difference there is. And I don't think I have a stroke that necessarily translates well into open water. So the only, what's that for, Rich?
Well, how does it not translate well? If like what?
So James was saying, like, how do you get ready for open water? I think the one kind of change to a stroke or something you should be able to do is swim with a little bit of a faster cadence, so that you can make those minor adjustments as waves and stuff come in. You're swimming with a quicker turnover, so you make those minor adjustments as you go. I have a very, very slow turnover. I guess that's because I can grab a lot of water. I am taller, so that helps, I think, a decent amount. But like I have a pretty slow stroke rate. And if I was a little bit faster with my stroke rate, I think I'd be better in maybe not in every open water condition, but better in tough open water conditions. So
Gotcha.
that's really the only thing I think that is really something that you do need to be able to breathe to both sides pretty well. Just again, to deal with changing conditions, I think a quicker turnover works better in open water than in the pool. And those are really the only two things I see as technique things that would help you in the open water versus the pool.
And that could be a whole show on itself. I don't know if we want to get into that today, but I was just thinking about how I've heard that it's better instead of swimming like twice a week, let's say an hour each session, you're almost better off like swimming short sessions like 5 days a week. You'll get more benefit out of that if you just keep going every day or more frequently than like 2 really like long focus sessions.
Yeah. And I think a big benefit you get from that is you don't get upset with yourself in the pool. Like longer sessions are tough. Like I do think you need that aerobic benefit from swimming longer. But I do think that more frequent, shorter sessions are probably better than less frequent, longer sessions, just for maintaining that feel for the water. Because that's like a real thing. You make these minor adjustments to just feel the water better. And you lose that after a couple of days out of the water.
I think we know that makes sense, but it's just logistically, it's just hard to do.
Yeah. We should all put 25-yard pools in our backyard.
Yeah,
and,
right.
Keep them heated all winter long and stuff like that.
Or get those endless pools.
Oh my God. Could you imagine?
I don't think I could do that.
Oh, that'd be miserable.
Yeah, horrible. I don't know how people do that.
Endless pool right in your basement. Just
Yeah.
go in for a 30-minute swim every day. Hop on your trainer right
problems
afterwards.
there. Yeah, like I can run on a treadmill for a while, but the idea of being in a pool is boring sometimes.
Yeah.
And you got all the...
And just being in the same spot over and over, just...
Yeah.
No.
Can you imagine, like, if you did... Maybe this is what those XC guys do. Like, they have the endless pool, trainer, and treadmill, and they're just inside.
Triathlon every day.
Like jail.
Yeah.
I don't think they have endless pools in jail, Marilyn.
I mean,
that's a real white collar prison. If that's the case.
That's horrible.
Did you see the clip? Those like I don't know if it's like an Olympic training facility. It's like for like professional swimmers where they have that huge tank. It looks like a wave pool. Like it goes really fast.
Yeah.
You swim against it.
Yeah.
But there was a clip of a guy who's swimming and then
got stuck.
He almost got sucked into the part where, and then like you see them panic for a moment, and they catch him and grab him, but he went in. I don't know what happens if you go in there, but you're kind of thinking like, wait, they should have safety.
Yeah, there should be a net.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Yeah.
But,
there might be now.
Yeah, I mean, I'm imagining if you get sucked in there, you get chopped up by something.
Yeah.
Oh God.
At minimum, I mean, number one, you probably drown, and then you get chopped up.
There must be like safety mechanisms that if anything touches it other than water, it turns off.
Guaranteed there isn't. No way.
I think in that video,
the
there's
fear
a guy,
in these people's faces, there was no safety mechanism.
Yeah, and you see, like, I think there's a guy that hits the emergency shutoff, but it doesn't just like stop. It just starts.
Was
to slow
it like
down.
an endless pool thing?
Like on steroids?
Yeah, it's It like all the water that's getting shot out the back is going. It's like a treadmill of water almost.
Oh.
Like a high-speed endless pool.
It's got like a metal grate on the far end, but apparently the grates are wide enough for a human leg to fit into.
Oh, Jesus.
Yeah, it's like the endless pools are just like hot tubs on steroids, like the things you can, like the Master Spa and stuff. But this thing is not that. This thing you can be going under a minute per 100 on these things.
It's almost like those surf simulators. Imagine.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Very similar to that.
Swim in it.
Yeah. I saw a video of Christian Blumenfeld in that with a VO2 mask on his face. Like they're trying to real time VO2 in the water.
Oh my God.
Wow. Jeez.
Why?
You can't
I
breathe,
guess- I
but
guess
let's
it's
put a
barrier zone.
VO2
Let's
mask
put a,
on you
let's
so
put a
you can't
mask on
breathe.
your face.
Oh my gosh.
Yep.
I guess just to dial in his swim zones.
Yeah.
How does that mask even work?
I've seen him getting masked like on the edge of the pool, but never
Yeah.
in.
Yep. This one, he was in the
Norwegians.
flume with it.
Wow.
So,
Hmm.
all right. So lots of places to make improvements. I think like one of the things that we all like when I was working with you guys, James and Marilyn, over the last year, we spent a decent amount of time with like technique stuff. Like
Mhm.
I think you both bought into the idea of like improving technique is going to have a bigger effect than working on swim fitness all the time. And I think you have to find that balance point of where you're like, okay, we do still get some swim fitness going and we have time to work on technique. And it's hard to like do both of those at like in the same session. I think it's better to like split them up and be like, okay, here's, James, we talked about it before where we gave you like the recovery session on Monday was just technique, like just go in and play, get your drills done, like get a good feel for the water and stuff. Marilyn, we did like a block of
I think
focus.
we did a lot. Yeah. I think towards the end of the season, I think I was doing more technique stuff than anything else. And
Right.
I didn't feel like I lost anything.
No, I don't think
felt
so either.
Great. Yeah.
And then, I mean, you had a good swim at Wilmington. I mean, current a little bit helped, but I still think it was a good swim.
Yeah. And I felt good more.
Yeah, more importantly. So I think that's one of the big takeaways is don't get in the habit of like feeling like you always have to be pushing to get more fit in the pool. Like the technique benefits far outweigh any of the aerobic benefits, especially since you're doing the other two sports. Like there's going to be carryover from those sports. So,
and I think there's two things you can do to really kind of supercharge your results. One, if you can go to a swim clinic like we did last year, we'll probably bring that back again this year.
Yeah.
Just get some like focused instruction, get feedback, get video feedback, like really see what you're doing, and then get the drills that are prescribed for you that are going to help you the best. And then two is make sure you pick races that have downriver swims. Doesn't even matter.
Yeah.
Super helpful.
Yeah.
Next year is turning out to be a good swim.
Next year's going to be a fast swim year. Yeah. I might not even have to practice get in the pool before.
Because was it a Chattanooga? The potato chip made the time.
Yep.
Yeah.
The potato chip bag.
Bag of potato chips.
Just blow it wild.
I would also say if you can find a master swim group where there's a coach on deck, that can be very good because odds are that person has a long history of experience swimming and is going to be able to pick up things and give you techniques and tips and like little drills and stuff. Constant feedback is helpful. If it's just kind of, it doesn't have to necessarily be a triathlon focused masters group, but where you have somebody on deck giving you some feedback consistently is of huge value.
And get a coach too. Like, so we have programming and coaching. We can arrange for some one-on-one and something new this year. We're still ironing out the details, but I think we're going to have one-on-one private lessons available through the team. And especially if you're a new beginner swimmer that you need to start from square one, we're going to have something set up at Bethany that's definitely very economical to get into because it's normally just $25 a month to have pool access, which that's sometimes a big barrier, finding a pool facility at a reasonable price.
Yeah.
And then having a dedicated instructor for you there. So stay tuned for more details on that.
Awesome. Cool.
Yeah. So cool.
Yeah.
Anybody have anything else to add? I think we covered a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
All right, cool. Thanks everybody for listening to this episode of the Quad Pod, and we'll be back next week with some more stuff. Thanks again, everybody. Take care. Thanks everyone for listening to the Next Level Quad Pod. We really appreciate you spending time with us and listening to everything that we have to offer. If you like what you heard, please leave us a review and a rating. Those little things go a long way towards us being able to bring you more content like this. If you'd like to learn more about what we have to offer, please go to our website at goteamnltry.com. There, you can find out about all the different things we provide that can help you reach your athletic potential. Thank you again for finding time in your busy schedule to spend some time with the Quad Pod.